Welcome, bloodthirsty viewers across the galaxy, to the most watched reality show in 12 star systems, Apex Predators Ultimate Hunt Edition. I'm your host, Glorbex the announcer, and tonight we're witnessing television history in the making. Now, for those of you just tuning in from your cozy death worlds, let me explain the concept. We take the galaxy's most feared apex predators, drop them on random planets, and watch them hunt the local wildlife. It's like nature documentaries, but with more screaming and better ratings. The Galactic Intelligence Mission loves it, the advertisers throw money at us, and our contestants get to satisfy their primal urges while becoming galactic celebrities. Everyone wins, except the prey, but that's the point. This season, we've assembled our most impressive lineup yet. First up, we have Vex the Shadowstalker from Umbros Prime. This 8-foot nightmare can bend light around his body, making him practically invisible. He's got retractable claws that can cut through titanium, reflexes that would make a photon jealous, and a hunting record that includes 17 sentient species. Vex doesn't just kill his prey, folks. He psychologically torments them first. The judges love his artistic flair. Next, we have Captain Razorfang, from the crystalline caves of Zerion. Picture a bear, but made of living metal, with teeth that vibrate at frequencies that can shatter bone, and energy shields that deflect plasma weapons. His specialty is the dramatic entrance, usually involving the complete destruction of whatever his prey thought was their safe shelter. The captain hasn't lost a hunt in 43 standard years. And finally, the crown jewel of our contestant roster, Queen Venomclaw from the toxic swamps of Nexus 7. She's part spider, part dragon, all nightmare fuel. Her venom can dissolve matter at the molecular level. She can spit acid with sniper rifle accuracy, and she builds elaborate death traps that would make ancient Earth torture devices look like children's toys. The Queen doesn't just hunt, she orchestrates symphonies of terror. Now here's where it gets interesting. Our production team has discovered a backwater planet in the unfashionable end of the Orion Spiral. It's called Earth, and according to our xenobiological surveys, it's absolutely teeming with potential prey species. The planet has these fascinating creatures called mammals, and get this, some of them actually form emotional bonds with each other. Can you imagine? It's like a buffet of psychological vulnerability. Our contestants have been given access to the planetary database and they've made their selections. Vex has chosen something called a house cat, apparently a small predator that the locals keep as companions. Razorfang selected a golden retriever, which sounds positively majestic, and Queen Venomclaw, showing her usual flair for the dramatic, has chosen what the database lists as a honey badger and its human companion. Now, I'll be honest with you viewers, the research department had some concerns about that last choice. Something about humans having opposable thumbs and concerning problem-solving abilities. But come on, look at these creatures. The human is pink, mostly hairless, and doesn't even have proper claws or fangs. And this honey badger thing? It's barely 2 feet long and looks like a striped rat. What's the worst that could happen? Our contestants are confident, our cameras are rolling, and our insurance policies are up to date. Well, mostly up to date. The legal department made us add some interesting clauses this season, but I'm sure that's just standard procedure. So grab your favorite toxic beverage, settle into your death loungers, and prepare to witness the hunt of the millennium. This is going to be the easiest season finale in the show's history. What could possibly go wrong? And we're back, folks. Our 3 apex predators have just materialized on Earth via our patented quantum transport system. And, oh, what a lovely Tuesday morning it is in the Colorado Rockies. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, and somewhere in the distance, a wildlife conservationist named Jake Martinez is having absolutely no idea that his life is about to become significantly more interesting. Now Jake, bless his optimistic little human heart, works at a wildlife rehabilitation center. He spends his days nursing injured animals back to health and releasing them into the wild. It's heartwarming, really. Almost makes you forget that his planet is about to become a hunting ground for the galaxy's most efficient killers. But Jake's not alone in his daily routine. Oh no, viewers, he has a companion. Meet Buster, a honey badger who was orphaned as a kit and imprinted on Jake during rehabilitation. Now our research team assured me that honey badgers are basically Earth's version of a cuddly teddy bear. Small, fuzzy, probably enjoys belly rubs and gentle cooing sounds. I'm starting to suspect our research team may have been using expired data. Jake is currently standing in Buster's enclosure, which isn't really an enclosure anymore since Buster figured out how to open the locks, dig under the fences, and somehow short-circuit the electronic barriers. It's more of a designated Buster area that Buster chooses to respect, out of what Jake optimistically calls mutual respect, and what I'm beginning to suspect might be barely contained chaos management. All right, Buster. Jake says, holding a bucket of raw meat that would make a Nexus 7 warbeast jealous. Breakfast time, buddy. Buster, for those keeping track at home, is indeed about 2 feet long and covered in what appears to be a black and white striped pattern. He looks up at Jake with these dark, beady little eyes that I'm now realizing don't contain even a molecule of fear, submission, or any emotion that civilized creatures should have when confronted with larger beings. Instead, Buster's eyes contain what can only be described as barely restrained violence, and the absolute certainty that he can take anyone in a fight. That's when our contestants make their grand entrance. Vex, being the dramatic sort, decides to decloak directly behind Jake, in what he probably imagines is a terrifying display of superior predatory skills. The problem is, the moment he becomes visible, Buster's head snaps around like a furry little missile guidance system, locking onto a target. Jake, meanwhile, turns around and looks at the 8-foot-tall shadow monster with the kind of mild curiosity usually reserved for discovering a new type of bird at the feeder. "Oh," Jake says, with the sort of calm that should probably worry everyone involved. "Hello there. Are you lost?" Vex is clearly thrown off by this response. In his 47 successful hunts, no prey has ever asked if he needed directions. He recovers quickly, though, letting out what I assume is supposed to be a bone-chilling roar that has sent entire civilizations fleeing in terror. Buster's response is immediate and comprehensive. He makes a sound that starts somewhere in the range of annoyed house cat and escalates rapidly through chainsaw-hitting rebar before settling into what can only be described as the concentrated essence of rage given audible form. Then he charges. Now, I want to be clear about something, viewers. Buster weighs maybe 30 pounds, Vex weighs approximately 400 pounds, and is armed with claws that can cut through titanium. By every law of physics, biology, and common sense, this should be a very short, very one-sided encounter. Instead, what happens is that Buster launches himself through the air like a fairy missile of pure hatred, and latches onto Vex's face with what appears to be supernatural grip strength. Vex, who has never encountered anything that didn't have the basic survival instinct to run away from things that could kill it, begins making sounds that I'm pretty sure violate several galactic noise ordinances. Jake watches this with the detached interest of a scientist observing an unexpected but fascinating development. "Ha," he says, pulling out a notebook. "I've never seen Buster react that strongly to a new species before. This is actually quite interesting from a behavioral perspective." Captain Razorfang and Queen Venomclaw, who were planning their own dramatic entrances, suddenly find themselves reconsidering their approach as they watch their teammate getting thoroughly mauled by what their database insisted was harmless local fauna. And that, dear viewers, is when they realize they may have made a tiny miscalculation about Earth's food chain. Now, Captain Razorfang has been watching this entire debacle unfold, and being a professional predator with 43 years of successful hunts under his metallic belt, he decides to take charge of the situation. Clearly, Vex's problem was his approach. Too much drama, not enough overwhelming force. The captain's philosophy has always been simple. When in doubt, hit it with everything you've got until it stops moving. So while Vex is still trying to pry a honey badger off his face like some sort of demented furry facehugger, Captain Razorfang powers up his energy shields and activates his sonic teeth. The sound is absolutely terrifying, viewers. It's like a dentist's drill crossed with an industrial chainsaw, played through speakers designed by sadists. Jake looks up from his notebook where he's been sketching Buster's attack patterns. "Oh, there are more of you?" he observes with the kind of scientific enthusiasm usually reserved for discovering a new species of butterfly. "Are you all from the same planet? This is fascinating. Buster, we have more visitors." Buster, who has somehow managed to get Vex into what I can only describe as a submission hold despite being roughly 1/10 his size, briefly looks up at the captain. His expression, if honey badgers can be said to have expressions, suggests that he's already mentally adding Captain Razorfang to his list of things that need to be violently educated about the pecking order. Captain Razorfang charges forward, confident that his energy shields will protect him from whatever primitive attack this Earth creature might attempt. After all, these shields have deflected plasma cannons, fusion beams, and concentrated dark matter. What could a 30-pound mammal possibly do? That's when Buster demonstrates something our research team apparently missed in their analysis. Honey badgers don't just bite things. They bite things and then refuse to let go while simultaneously clawing, twisting, and somehow defying several laws of physics in their determination to cause maximum damage. Buster releases Vex, who immediately collapses in what I'm pretty sure is a concussion-induced stupor, and launches himself directly at Captain Razorfang's energy shields. Now, by every known law of science, Buster should have bounced off like a furry tennis ball. Instead, he somehow goes through the shield like it's not even there. Interesting. Jake muses, scribbling more notes. Buster seems to be completely unaffected by your energy field. I wonder if it's related to honey badgers' natural resistance to electrical discharge? They do raid beehives that are often protected by electric fencing. Captain Razorfang has approximately 3 seconds to contemplate the implications of this, before Buster latches onto his snout and begins what can only be described as an interpretive dance entitled, "Why Messing with My Human Was a Bad Life Choice." The captain's sonic teeth, which have shattered reinforced hull plating, seem to have no effect whatsoever on Buster. If anything, the vibrations just seem to make him angrier, which I didn't think was physically possible. Queen Venomclaw, watching her 2 teammates get systematically dismantled by what she had assumed was going to be an appetizer, decides it's time for the professionals to show these amateurs how it's done. She's spent decades perfecting her craft, and she's not about to be upstaged by some oversized rat. The Queen positions herself at maximum range and begins charging her molecular acid spit. This attack is dissolved through starship hulls, folks. It can break down matter at the atomic level. Whatever this creature is made of, it's about to become a small puddle of constituent elements. She fires with perfect accuracy, hitting Buster directly in the center of his back, while he's busy rearranging Captain Razorfang's understanding of pain. For a moment, there's silence except for the captain's muffled whimpering. Then Buster turns around, and I swear, viewers, he looks annoyed. Not injured, not dying, just annoyed, like someone just interrupted his favorite television program. "Oh," Jake says, looking genuinely impressed. "You hit him with some kind of acid compound. That's actually quite remarkable. Honey badgers have incredibly thick, loose skin that's highly resistant to toxins and corrosive substances. It's an evolutionary adaptation from raiding bee colonies and fighting venomous snakes. Fascinating that it works against alien biochemistry too." Queen Venomclaw stares at this in disbelief. Her acid is supposed to dissolve anything organic. She fires again, this time multiple shots in rapid succession. Buster shrugs off each impact like he's being hit with a water balloon. Then he does something that will haunt Queen Venomclaw's nightmares for the rest of her considerably shortened career. He smiles. Actually smiles, showing teeth that look like they were designed by evolution specifically for causing psychological trauma to apex predators. And then he charges. Jake, meanwhile, has moved on to observing the tactical aspects of the engagement. "You know," he says conversationally to the writhing pile that used to be Captain Razorfang, "this is actually a perfect demonstration of why honey badgers are considered one of Africa's most fearless animals." Buster's displaying classic honey badger behavior: complete fearlessness, overwhelming aggression, and an absolute refusal to acknowledge that he's outmatched. It's quite beautiful in its own way. By this point, Queen Venomclaw has discovered that trying to run from a honey badger is like trying to run from a very small, very determined natural disaster. Buster catches up to her in about 4 bounds and immediately begins demonstrating why his species has a reputation for taking on lions, leopards, and, apparently, interdimensional alien predators with equal enthusiasm. The galactic betting pools, by the way, have completely reversed. Nobody's taking odds on the predators anymore. The smart money is now on how long it takes Jake to domesticate the rest of the alien invasion force and whether Buster will demand extra treats for his performance. Now, at this point in our regularly scheduled programming, we'd normally be wrapping up with some satisfying footage of apex predators dragging their conquered prey back to the ship. Instead, we're watching 3 of the galaxy's most feared hunters getting comprehensively educated about Earth's food chain by what our database still insists is harmless local fauna. But our contestants aren't ready to admit defeat just yet. Oh no, viewers. They're about to make what historians will later refer to as the second worst decision in the history of interstellar relations. The first, of course, being the time the Regilian Empire tried to tax human coffee imports. But that's another story. Vex, who has finally managed to stop seeing double and can now form coherent thoughts again, activates his emergency communicator. "Command," he gasps, his voice carrying the sort of desperate terror usually reserved for people who've just realized they're in a horror movie. "We need immediate backup, all available hunters, this is not a drill." "Is there a problem?" comes the response from the orbiting command ship. "Our sensors show you're engaging 2 small organic life forms, estimated threat level, negligible." "Your sensors," Vex replies while watching Buster systematically dismantling Queen Venomclaw's remaining dignity, "are apparently defective. Send everyone. Send them now. And tell the legal department to start drafting apology letters." Within minutes, the sky above Jake's Wildlife Center begins filling with ships. Not just the original hunting vessel, but backup crews, support staff, and what appears to be an entire battle fleet. Apparently, when apex predators call for help, the galaxy takes notice. Jake looks up at the growing armada with the mild interest of someone watching an unusual cloud formation. "Oh my," he says, adjusting his baseball cap. "You brought friends." "Buster, I think we're about to have a much busier day than planned." Buster, who has just finished explaining to Queen Venomclaw why her venom sacs are now external accessories rather than internal organs, looks up at the ships with what I can only describe as anticipation. He makes a sound that starts as a chittering noise and escalates into what sounds like a very small dinosaur declaring war on the universe. That's when something interesting happens. Jake's demeanor shifts. It's subtle at first, just a slight change in posture, a different quality to his voice. The mild-mannered wildlife conservationist is still there, but underneath it, something else is emerging. Something that took one look at a fleet of alien ships, threatening his friend, and decided that this situation requires a more direct approach. "You know," Jake says, and his voice has taken on the sort of calm that makes smart people very nervous. "I've spent the last 10 years studying animal behavior, predator-prey relationships, territorial disputes, pack dynamics. And there's one thing I've learned about bullies, whether they're wild animals or apparently interdimensional reality show contestants." He reaches into his equipment shed and pulls out what looks like a perfectly ordinary hiking backpack. But as he starts unpacking it, the contents become considerably more interesting. Emergency flares, portable radios, a GPS device, climbing rope, emergency rations, and what appears to be enough survival gear to trek across Antarctica. "The thing about bullies," Jake continues conversationally while methodically checking each piece of equipment with the sort of professional competence that suggests he's done this before, "is that they only pick on what they think are easy targets. But here's the thing about humans that your research team apparently missed. More ships are landing now. Not just hunters, but technical support crews, medical staff, and what looks suspiciously like a news crew. The first wave of backup hunters emerges from their vessels, all fangs and claws and exotic weapons designed to kill things that shouldn't be killable. We're persistence hunters," Jake explains, shouldering his pack with practiced ease. "Do you know what that means? It means we don't have to be faster than you, or stronger than you, or more heavily armed than you. It means we just have to outlast you." Buster, who has been listening to this conversation while keeping one eye on the growing crowd of aliens, makes a sound of approval. It's the sort of sound a very small creature makes when it realizes its pack leader is about to do something spectacular. "You picked on my friend here," Jake continues, and now he's moving with the sort of deliberate efficiency that would make military instructors proud. "And that was your first mistake. Your second mistake was thinking that calling for backup would somehow improve your situation." The newly arrived hunters spread out in what they probably imagine is an intimidating formation. There are dozens of them now, representing some of the most dangerous species in known space. They have energy weapons, combat armor, and hunting experience that spans centuries. Jake pulls out a small device that looks like a cross between a smartphone and a walkie-talkie. "Hi, this is Jake Martinez at the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Center. I need to report a situation. We have multiple unidentified aircraft violating restricted airspace and what appears to be an armed incursion by unknown hostile forces." "Unknown hostile forces," comes the response. "Sir, are you reporting a military situation?" "I'm not sure what I'm reporting," Jake says honestly, "but I've got about 40 aliens with what look like weapons surrounding my wildlife center, and they just attacked my honey badger." There's a pause. "Sir, did you say they attacked your honey badger?" "Yes, and he's not happy about it." "Sir, we're scrambling everything, Air Force, National Guard, and I think someone just called the Marines. Hold tight." Jake pockets the device and looks at the assembled army of apex predators with the sort of polite attention usually reserved for door-to-door salespeople. "Now, I want to be reasonable about this," he says. "You're clearly not from around here, and maybe this is all just a cultural misunderstanding. So I'm going to give you one chance to pack up your ships, apologize to Buster, and leave quietly." The lead hunter, a particularly nasty-looking specimen with more teeth than strictly necessary, lets out what is probably supposed to be an intimidating roar. "Surrender, human, and we might make your death quick." Jake nods thoughtfully. "You know, that's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, because now I don't have to feel bad about what happens next." He turns to Buster, who has been watching this exchange with the sort of focused attention a symphony conductor gives to a particularly challenging piece of music. "Okay, buddy," Jake says, and his voice has taken on the sort of tone that dog trainers use when they're about to unleash something spectacular. "Remember that trick we've been working on? The one where you cause a distraction while I flank around behind them?" Buster's response is immediate and comprehensive. He doesn't just charge the assembled hunters, he launches into what can only be described as a masterpiece of controlled chaos. But this time, he's not just attacking randomly. This time, he's working with tactical precision, creating exactly the sort of confusion Jake needs. And that, dear viewers, is when our alien hunters discover that humans don't just have opposable thumbs and concerning problem-solving abilities. They also have an unfortunate tendency to treat overwhelmingly dangerous situations as interesting puzzles that need solving. Jake disappears into the surrounding forest with the sort of silent efficiency that would make Special Forces operators jealous, leaving Buster to demonstrate why honey badgers have never heard of the concept of tactical withdrawal. The aliens are about to learn that there's something much worse than a honey badger with anger management issues. There's a honey badger with a human friend, who's just realized that someone needs to be taught a lesson about picking on Earth's wildlife. Now folks, this is where our little nature documentary takes a hard left turn into what military historians will eventually classify as asymmetric warfare with extreme prejudice. You see, while our galactic hunters were busy congratulating themselves on calling in reinforcements, they made a critical error in judgment. They assumed that more predators would solve their predator problem. What they failed to consider is that humans have spent the last 200,000 years turning being hunted by apex predators into hunting apex predators for sport and decorating their caves with the results. Jake has been gone for exactly 4 minutes when the first alien hunter simply vanishes. One moment, Score the Bone Crusher is standing guard at the perimeter, confidently scanning for threats with his advanced sensory equipment. The next moment, there's nothing but a small pile of very expensive alien hunting gear and what appears to be a polite note written on a piece of bark that says, "Gone fishing, back soon, please don't move. Jake." "Where's Score?" demands the pack leader, a particularly unpleasant creature called Grim Fang, who has more combat experience than most small armies. "Unknown," reports the scanner operator. "His life signs just disappeared. No energy discharge, no signs of struggle. He's just gone." Grimfang snarls something in his native language that would probably violate several galactic communication standards. "Find him. Now. And stay in groups. No one hunts alone." That's when Buster, who has been providing a magnificent distraction by systematically working his way through the alien invasion force like a furry blender, suddenly stops mid-maul and tilts his head. He's listening to something the aliens can't hear. 3 short whistle blasts, a pause, 2 long ones, another pause, 1 short blast. Buster makes a sound that can only be described as honey badger laughter and immediately shifts tactics. Instead of his previous strategy of attack everything that moves, he begins what can only be called strategic harassment. He darts in, causes exactly enough chaos to scatter the group, then melts back into the underbrush before anyone can respond. "It's coordinating," whispers one of the hunters in growing horror. "The small one is coordinating with the human." That's when the second hunter disappears. Vorthak the Mind Ripper, who prided himself on his psychic abilities and his talent for sensing hostile intent, simply steps behind a tree to investigate a suspicious sound and fails to step back out. His equipment is found neatly stacked next to another bark note. "Busy at the moment. Please hold. Your call is important to me." "Me? Jake?" By this point, the Galactic Predator Council, watching from orbit, has begun to suspect that their reality show has evolved into something significantly more educational than originally intended. Specifically, it's become a detailed instructional video on why invading Earth might not be the relaxing vacation they'd imagined. "Sir," reports the sensor operator, his voice carrying the sort of professional calm that suggests he's rapidly running out of professional calm. "We're reading multiple military aircraft approaching from the south, fast movers. Lots of them." "Earth military?" asks the council chairman. "Yes, sir. And sir, they're not flying in a let's have a friendly chat formation. They're flying in a someone is about to have a very bad day formation." On the ground, Grimfang is discovering that leading a pack of apex predators is considerably more complicated when your pack keeps mysteriously shrinking. He's down to 37 hunters from his original 43, and the remaining ones are beginning to show signs of what he can only describe as extreme nervousness. "Where is he?" Grimfang roars, spinning in circles as another hunter simply vanishes while walking between 2 trees. "How is one human picking us off like this?" That's when Jake's voice drifts out of the forest, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You know, that's actually a great question. Would you like me to explain while you still have enough people left to appreciate the lecture?" "Show yourself, coward." Oh, I'm not hiding. Jake's voice comes from a completely different direction now. I'm just utilizing what we call environmental advantages. See, you're apex predators on your homeworlds, which means you're used to being the biggest, scariest thing around. But here's the problem with that approach. Another hunter vanishes. This one was standing in the middle of a clearing, surrounded by his teammates, and he still somehow managed to disappear between one blink and the next. You never learned to be prey, Jake continues conversationally. You never had to develop the skills that prey animals use to survive. Patience, persistence, the ability to think 3 moves ahead while something bigger and meaner is actively trying to eat you. The remaining hunters cluster together in what they hope is a defensive formation. They're now scanning constantly, weapons powered up, ready to fire at anything that moves. Unfortunately for them, Jake isn't moving. He's already where he needs to be. Humans, on the other hand, Jake's voice continues, and now it seems to be coming from directly above them, which shouldn't be possible since they're watching the trees, spent most of our evolutionary history being stalked by things with bigger teeth and better night vision. We got really, really good at turning that situation around. That's when the trees start talking back. Not literally, of course, but Jake has apparently spent his 4 minutes in the forest doing something incredibly clever with his emergency equipment, because now his voice is coming from speakers he's somehow rigged throughout the area. Portable radios, emergency beacons, even what sounds like a modified cell phone, all synchronized to create a surround sound psychological warfare system. For instance, Jake says, and his voice is now coming from 12 different directions at once. Did you know that humans are one of the few species that hunts by persistence? We don't chase our prey, we follow it, for days if necessary. We track it, we anticipate its moves, and we wait for it to make a mistake. Grimfang is beginning to understand that he's not dealing with a primitive human armed with sticks and stones. He's dealing with a human who has somehow turned an entire forest into a weapon. And the beautiful thing about persistence hunting, Jake continues, his voice now echoing from what sounds like inside their own equipment, is that it's not about being stronger or faster than your prey. It's about being smarter. It's about understanding that every creature, no matter how dangerous, has patterns, weaknesses, blind spots. The sound of approaching aircraft is getting louder now. Military jets, helicopters, and what sounds suspiciously like the entire Colorado National Guard converging on their position. So here's what's going to happen, Jake says, and his tone has shifted from educational to something that makes smart creatures start looking for exits. You're going to call off this little hunting expedition, you're going to apologize very sincerely to my friend Buster, and you're going to leave, right now, before my backup arrives and this situation becomes significantly more complicated. And if we refuse, Grimfang snarls, though his voice lacks the confidence it had earlier. There's a pause. Then Jake's voice comes back, and it's no longer coming from speakers. It's coming from directly behind Grimfang, close enough to feel breath on his neck. Then you'll find out why humans are the only species on this planet that hunts apex predators for fun, Jake whispers, and hangs their heads on the wall as decorations. That's when Grimfang realizes 2 things simultaneously. First, that Jake has somehow gotten close enough to kill him at any point during this conversation, and second, that the only reason he's still alive is because Jake has chosen to let him live. For now, the sound of Buster's delighted chittering echoes through the forest as the remaining alien hunters suddenly discover a pressing need to return to their ships and reconsider their life choices. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings across the galaxy, what you're witnessing right now is what the Galactic Historical Society will eventually catalog as the Great Reckoning, or, as it's known in the more informal records, the day we learned why Earth has a Do Not Disturb sign. The retreat, if we're being generous enough to call it that, begins with Grimfang's voice cracking, like an adolescent facing his first combat situation. All units, he squeaks into his communicator. Return to ships. Immediate extraction. This is not a drill. This is not a hunt. This is a survival situation. But here's where things get even more interesting, viewers, because the human military has finally arrived, and they're not particularly interested in letting a bunch of alien ships just fly away after what appears to be an unprovoked attack on American soil. Specifically, American soil containing Jake Martinez and his honey badger, which, as it turns out, makes this a federal incident of the highest priority. The first F-22 Raptors scream overhead just as the alien hunters reach their ships, followed by enough helicopters to make it look like a very aggressive air show. The lead pilot gets on the radio with what I can only describe as professional enthusiasm. Unknown aircraft, this is Colonel Patricia Hawkins, United States Air Force. You are in violation of restricted airspace and have committed acts of aggression against American citizens. You will land immediately and prepare to be boarded, or we will land you ourselves. The Galactic Predator Council, watching this unfold from orbit, suddenly realizes that they're not dealing with a primitive planet anymore. They're dealing with a species that has apparently militarized their entire atmosphere and takes a very dim view of people threatening their wildlife conservationists. "Sir," reports the sensor operator, and his voice has taken on the sort of professional terror that suggests his career prospects are rapidly approaching zero. "The Earth military is powering weapons systems, multiple targeting locks. I'm reading surface-to-air missiles, air-to-air missiles, and what appears to be a very large number of humans with very large guns." Down on the ground, Jake emerges from the forest like he's been out for a casual nature walk. His hair is barely mussed, his notebook is still tucked neatly in his pocket, and he's carrying what appears to be a small collection of advanced alien hunting equipment like it's a bag of groceries. "Sorry about that," he says to the cluster of thoroughly traumatized alien hunters who are huddled around their ships like children afraid of the dark. "I hope you don't take this personally. It's just that Buster doesn't like bullies, and neither do I." Buster trots up beside him, looking absolutely delighted with the morning's entertainment. He's somehow managed to acquire what appears to be a trophy collection of alien equipment, including several weapons, a few pieces of armor, and what looks suspiciously like someone's tail. "Now," Jake continues in the same conversational tone he might use to discuss the weather, "I believe someone owes my friend here an apology." The assembled hunters look at each other with the sort of desperate hope usually reserved for people checking lottery tickets. Grimfang steps forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by something that can only be described as profound respect for Earth's food chain. We apologize," he stammered, addressing Buster directly. "We did not understand the local customs. We meant no disrespect to your terrifying magnificence." Buster considers this for a moment, then makes a sound that might be acceptance, or might be him deciding whether these particular aliens would make good chew toys. Jake pats him gently on the head. "He accepts your apology," Jake translates, "but he wants you to know that if you ever come back, he's going to be significantly less patient about the whole thing." That's when Colonel Hawkins' helicopter touches down, and she emerges with the sort of professional competence that suggests she's dealt with unusual situations before, though probably not ones involving interdimensional reality shows and honey badgers with authority issues. "Mr. Martinez?" she calls out, somehow managing to sound perfectly calm despite the fact that she's addressing a man surrounded by alien spaceships and what appears to be a small creature that systematically dismantled an entire invasion force. "That's me," Jake replies cheerfully. "Sorry about the commotion, Colonel. We had some unexpected visitors who didn't quite understand our local wildlife protection policies." Colonel Hawkins surveys the scene, dozens of alien hunters in various states of psychological distress, multiple spacecraft, and Jake Martinez standing there with his notebook like he's been conducting a perfectly ordinary field study. "Sir," she says, with the sort of professional restraint that suggests extensive training in unusual situations, "would you mind explaining exactly what happened here?" "Well," Jake says thoughtfully, "these folks showed up claiming to be part of some sort of reality show, and they wanted to hunt Buster. I tried to explain that honey badgers don't really do the whole being hunted thing, but they insisted on learning through direct experience." The colonel looks at Buster, who chooses this moment to demonstrate his trophy collection by dragging over what appears to be a piece of alien technology roughly twice his size. "I see," she says. "And the current situation?" "Oh, they're leaving," Jake says confidently. "I think they've learned everything they wanted to know about Earth's wildlife management practices." From orbit, the Galactic Predator Council is frantically trying to salvage what remains of their dignity and their insurance policies. The chairman calls an emergency session that will go down in history as the fastest unanimous vote in council history. "Motion to classify Earth as a Class X restricted zone," the chairman announces. "All in favor?" The response is immediate and comprehensive. AAI. Motion to issue a formal apology to the planet Earth, specifically to one Jake Martinez and his associate. What was it called? Honey Badger, sir. His associate Honey Badger, for the unauthorized intrusion into their territory. Beta. Motion to rename our show Predators Cautionary Tales from the Universe, and use this footage as our premiere episode, titled Why Research Matters. AE. And finally, the chairman says, with the weary resignation of someone whose career has just taken an unexpected turn, motion to establish the Jake Martinez Memorial Fund for Galactic Humility and the Buster Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement in Attitude Adjustment. Aye. Back on Earth, the alien hunters are loading into their ships with the sort of haste usually reserved for evacuating natural disasters. As the last ship prepares to depart, Grimfang approaches Jake with something that might charitably be called humility. "Human Jake," he says formally, "we have learned much today. May we ask what you will do now?" Jake looks around at the scattered alien equipment, the military personnel setting up a perimeter, and Buster, who is currently trying to figure out how to fit a piece of alien armor into his den. "Well," Jake says thoughtfully, "I suppose I should probably write up a report for the Wildlife Service. Successful interspecies contact resulting in educational exchange. Something like that." He pauses and looks at Buster, who has managed to get the alien armor stuck halfway into his burrow and is making increasingly frustrated noises. "Oh, and I should probably call the pet store," Jake adds. "I think Buster's going to need some bigger treats after today." As the alien ships disappear into the sky, Colonel Hawkins approaches Jake with a clipboard and the sort of expression that suggests paperwork is about to become very complicated. "Mr. Martinez," she says, "I'm going to need you to walk me through exactly how you managed to neutralize an entire alien invasion force with a honey badger and a hiking backpack." Jake considers this for a moment, then pulls out his notebook and flips to a fresh page. "Well, Colonel," he says with the enthusiasm of someone about to give his favorite lecture, "it all comes down to understanding predator-prey relationships and the importance of environmental adaptation. You see, humans are persistence hunters, and Buster here represents about 20 million years of evolutionary specialization in not caring about anything that tries to threaten him. And that, dear viewers, is how a wildlife conservationist and his honey badger accidentally taught the galaxy a lesson about the dangers of underestimating Earth's residents." The show Apex Predator's Ultimate Hunt Edition was quietly canceled and replaced with galactic nature documentaries, observed from a safe distance. Jake Martinez returned to his normal routine of rehabilitating injured wildlife, though he did receive a rather substantial research grant from something called the Galactic Scientific Exchange Program. Buster, for his part, seems to have enjoyed the excitement and has been noticeably more disappointed with his regular routine of destroying beehives and terrorizing the local coyote population, though he did keep the alien armor, which he wears on special occasions, and which makes him look like the galaxy's smallest and most vindictive space marine. As for the Galactic Predator Council, they've established a new policy regarding Earth: avoid at all costs. Seriously, we mean it, those things are crazy. And somewhere in the Colorado Rockies, if you listen carefully on quiet Tuesday mornings, you can still hear the sound of Jake Martinez explaining to visiting researchers why honey badgers don't care about your fancy technology, and why that's probably for the best. For everyone involved.